goddamn video on.
Is my video not on?
It's not on, dog. Turn it on.
Dude, how I see myself. So I assure
That's
you.
crazy, bro. Oh,
All
there
right,
you go.
let's
Now,
talk about
I saw you
let's
for a
talk
second.
about how the director
There you go.
is she. She is from Wales.
Oh. Well, fuck
Okay.
me.
All right, there we
Cool.
go. See, Chris coming in with the real shit. All right.
I'm just out here guessing.
This is the second correction. First on the show.
Yes. First on the show, but not the only.
Yeah. So the original correction was from the director of Slumber Party Massacre, where we thought it was a guy just talking about drilling chicks, and it was a chick talking about drilling chicks.
Just a horny director with a big old drill, and he's like, that's what he was doing, but apparently not.
What's been up with you guys in the week?
Hey, listen.
We last talked.
It's been fucking busy as hell.
I've been the most productive. So I had off today. You know, I took a mini vacay, a long weekend, depending on how you look at it. And I'll tell you what, guys, I made some lovely dinner. I made a balsamic chicken in the crock pot with some long grain rice, as I'm calling it, because I want to sound fancy and super important. Yeah, man, a little roasted broccoli in the oven, because that's how your guy gets down. He fucks, you know. That's what I do over here.
I just air fried some onion and chicken breasts.
Yeah, but we don't have to know that. I just pulled a recipe from tasty.com, tastyrecipes.com. But did my taxes. I'm not going to say what I owe because the feds could be listening, the state could be listening. They could audit me from this episode. So let me not speak too much, but let's just say your boy's doing all right.
He's doing okay.
He's doing okay, everybody.
Hey.
So, knock that out today, and who knows what the rest of the night holds for me? I don't know. I could be a millionaire by tomorrow morning at this rate. So that's what's up with me, guys. What about you, Chris? What about you, Caleb? Either of you.
Chris,
Caleb, that's a
go
beautiful
for it.
shirt you got on.
Oh, thank you. This is a Paul Bearer Press Return of the Living Dead shirt. I would stand up and show you more of it, but there is boobies on the shirt, and Twitch does not allow nudity.
Wow.
However, if you'd like to go see the shirt, you could see it at their website, paulbearpress.com, or you could go on our Instagram and see me sporting said lovely shirt.
You'd like to see Caleb's tits, go to his OnlyFans.
Yeah, this onlyfans.com/the Tapehead Massacre. We're selling horror NFTs.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I saw today, Arrow Video is making NFTs.
Damn, dude, they stole our idea.
They listened to last week's episode, those fucking bastards, and they stole our idea. God damn it.
It's all right.
Man.
Chris, more importantly, what about you, buddy? What have you been up to? What's going on in life? Talk to me.
Nothing, just working. I'm actually flying out to Texas. I mistakenly said tomorrow. I fly out Sunday at 5 a.m. But I have work tomorrow morning till 6:30, and then I will have to be at my carpool person. What do you call it? The driver of the carpool. The carpool.
Carpooler.
The car driver.
Carpooler's location.
Carpooler.
Yeah, let's go with that. I like that. So what are you going to Texas for? That's
I have to be there at 2 a.m. I'm going out for work, so my job is doing like a summit out there.
Oh, nice.
So they're flying us out. I'll be out there until Thursday.
All right.
Hell yeah. Love that.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah, and then other than that, I believe it or not, so I have an Xbox Series X, and I heard about Grand Theft Auto 5 being repurposed for the new console. So I gave it a buy today. Spent a good old $20 on that bad boy.
Not bad, not bad.
And forgot how great that game is. I just want to say
so fucking good
out there.
It's crossplay. We should play together.
Hey,
I've never played online, by the way.
Oh, it's the best. It's literally what you need to play. It's so fun and hilarious.
I'm a Rocket League guy.
Ooh, I play Rocket League all the time, bro. Let's go.
So much fun, dude. So much fun. I'm trying to. Anybody out there? I think this is like the 8th episode where I've done this, but I'm selling my Xbox One still. Yeah, I know. I know. But everybody wants it, Just
it's an Xbox. It's Xbox Series One, not to be confused with the Series S and the Series X recently released by Microsoft.
Correct. Yeah, not the newest, but it's an Xbox One. It's the older version. But hey, name your price, people. Name your price, and I will give it to you.
There might be a charity that would love that kind of donation.
Listen. I could do that. I could write it off on my taxes. I could do all those things. But Daddy needs some money. All right.
Dad, you write it off on the taxes, you would have only owed $20.
That's it, dude. Now I owe a whopping $24 to those fucking feds. The feds get me every time.
God damn it.
Oh well, that's all right.
Oh,
Speaking of
man.
the feds, Censor. No, just kidding. That's not a good transition at all.
I mean,
What kind of
it's a
transition is that?
It's a good it's a good transition, maybe.
They were acting like the feds.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean,
so because I was already acclimated with Censor, let's what did you guys think? Like initial thoughts?
well, one thing I want to say that opening up this film, it opens up with some really fucking sweet clips from some very notable films, such as I Spit on Your Grave, Driller Killer, Nightmare, Soul Tangler. There's a ton, and that was right there had me hooked. As soon as I saw the Driller Killer scene, I was like, hey, yo, this is gonna be a good one. And the premise of the film is really original, really unique, and kind of shows the stresses of being someone that's in, the rating system, having to review films and give them a rating. But I will say that I wouldn't I wouldn't have the same reaction that our leading lass had in this one. I think she just needs to fucking get a handle on her shit. But I digress. So that being said, I thought that this was definitely a very smooth watch. I had to watch it twice because I've been dead tired this whole week from work. But I did wind up scooping it after we recorded our last episode. So I have the HD version on a digital. I'll probably wind up copping a physical blue of it just because I enjoyed it.
Shout out.
Yeah. Do you have that? You do have that, right? If you
I
want
do.
to go ahead and
I
give
do.
it a little
I have it in
flash
like
around.
pieces right now, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
There you go. all one
Also,
unit.
great movie, so it's okay. But
There you go.
yeah. So that being said, I was already hooked from the gate there. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think what came out of it obviously was all the movies that it referenced visually, actually, which I thought was pretty cool. I like the juxtaposition of the mundane lives that these individuals lead, giving these ratings and editing pieces of the movies out. It definitely makes them feel like fuddy-duddy people. Like even just the colorway, I think, is the first thing that came to mind with,
Well, yeah.
Especially when you look at the dream sequences or when obviously she gets to Frederick North's little compound where he's filming. There's that. It almost reminds me of Suspiria with that like pink and purple and that kind of illustration and colorway of the background that's sort of transitioning you from scene to scene. But it's almost like when they're actually reviewing the movies, there's this like, and granted, I have no concept of cinematography. The phrases I'm about to use are ignorant and don't make any sense. So fucking bear with me, people. But hey, that's what you get with me on this goddamn fucking podcast. But hey, gray, like it's like a very like gray tone to any scene where they're actually reviewing the movies. And I think it's kind of, create a sense of their mundane lifestyle and somewhat of the main character's personality. So I really like that juxtaposition. I thought I love these kind of movies. I love these type of storylines where it's a very slow burn. It's very methodical. It's very up here the entire time until it hits you with that twist at the end. And I couldn't place it, and I still can't place the movie that it reminds me of in the way in which it turns. But I thought it was an awesome watch. And before this episode started recording, we were talking about the fact that it's under an hour and a half. It's such a quick watch, but it doesn't give you the feeling necessarily that it's quick. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like it was so painstakingly slow. But just an overall solid watch. I mean, I would literally recommend this to anybody to watch, like midday, morning, afternoon, night. Like you could breeze right through it, but it's such a good watch. And it doesn't, even though it's a slow burn, I don't think it necessarily, like you could kind of like divide your attention from the film too, if you wanted, and still kind of keep up with the pacing of the film. So I think as far as the story is concerned too, well written, very well written.
Yeah.
A couple big takeaways for me.
it's the definition to me of like that slow ride into depravity. And there's definitely a point where you're not really sure what you're in. You don't know if you're in the same story because it starts with that very saturated. It kind of reminds me of like anytime the American office life is depicted in movies, where it's
Yes.
like very saturated, and then slowly you start to learn about the sister, the disappearance, this actress who looks exactly like her. And then there is a point where you kind of don't know where you're at because the character doesn't really know what's going on. And I
Yeah.
remember once I hit that point thinking, okay, I'm in this because I don't know if this is real or like, is this all imagination? Like, is this even at the end?
Yeah,
You
well,
don't know.
specifically at the end, like that was where it throws you through a loop because you're like, is this in her head or is this happening? And it leaves a level of confusion that does get a resolution, but I think the way that it was dragged out, I stopped it. I stopped it. I saw your fucking face.
Dude, it's like you ate the yawn.
I
That was
did.
crazy.
I
Wow,
fucking
that was
I
awesome.
ate the whole shit. I ate the whole fucking yawn.
You took it right back, dude. It was like rewinding. That's awesome.
Oh my
Good
god.
job,
If you guys
dude.
were to see what my display's doing right now, it's really fucking terrible. I
Is
don't
it?
understand what's happening, but it's truly scary.
Wow.
I'm gonna take a quick fucking little video of it and post it on the Instagram because it's truly horrifying. Just move your hands around, actually. Just move your hands around a little bit. It's
There we
so
go.
fucking scary.
Give me the old 1-2 here.
Move your head a little bit, maybe just. Oh, this is. I don't understand
Everybody
it.
was kung fu. Chris looks like he's just double.
But
Man, I got bad mobility. All right,
That's all right. That's all right. Hey, no harm, no foul, man.
I'm
We all.
wide.
That's it. That's all. That's all. It's good. It's good. But I'll tell you. I'll tell you the truth, though. One little shout out in this film. I'm gonna butcher her name. We might butcher a lot of names today in this film. But the leading actress who plays Enid, Niam Algar. That's just how I'm gonna go for it.
I think you did it well.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought her acting was brilliant. Because especially talking about that ending, like that last 10 minutes of the film where things start to turn. I harkened back immediately from that scene to basically her throughout the entirety of the film. Chris, to your point, I think she plays it so well to the point where you're like, you don't know whether this is going to be one of those films where she's investigating almost a spiritual demonic sort of thing. That's because at certain points of the film where you come to find out that she has the missing sister, parents take her to, which, by the way, what a weird time to just say, hey, by the way, I know this thing that's been haunting you your entire life, Enid. We're gonna go ahead and just legally call your sister dead at dinner. How's the fish? Fish is delightful.
They're like Denny's. They're like
Yeah, but it also, I think it also paints a very good picture of the distortion of that family, because it doesn't necessarily speak to every single event that occurred before, during, and after that particular event that she keeps harkening back to in her memories that we as the viewer get pulled in and out of. But it definitely, that particular scene paints a picture that like they're not comfortable around one another.
Yeah.
In general. So like they didn't know what to do but fucking take her out in public to to dinner and then give her this news. But she plays this very, although she's quiet and calm, there's a certain unnervingness about her, even though that's not the right word, but there's just this steady state of anxiety underneath everything that she does that I think really shows itself at the end, and you go, oh, wait a second, like I can see how this all came about, right? It's not out of left field. So I think her acting was perfect throughout that film, and how she portrayed things. Because really, if you look at the film, it was just everything. All the characters just sort of played around her the entire time. So I think she carried the fuck out of that film. I don't know if she's in anything else, but I would definitely check her out again if I ever see her in a film, just for her.
That's kind of what I want to get into because you have. So I don't know how deeply you guys have ever dived into video nasties, if not at all. Infamously, I Spit on Your Grave, Cannibal Holocaust.
Yep.
Sure.
You guys are familiar with them, but there is a
Yep.
list of, I think, don't quote me, I think it's just under 80 titles
Mm.
that were technically considered video nasties in the 80s. And what's really interesting, and I just want to shout out Vinegar Syndrome again because this whole entire film is about somebody who works for the British film censorship system, and she is the actual person who's making the decisions for censorship. And this was something that was actually happening in Europe in the 80s because they were linking violent crimes and other outbursts to these extraordinary violent films at the time. And these were films that were getting banned from video stores, which we actually see in
Yep.
this movie when she goes to the video store looking for a particular Frederick North title,
That
and the
was a
guy's
really
like,
cool part. Yeah, that was a really cool
That
scene.
was.
yeah, the guy's like slinging them out from underneath of the desk. So that was a real thing that was happening in the 80s with films. And there is a terrific documentary actually in the bonus features for this, and it dives into a bunch of the video nasty titles and kind of what was happening at that time. So our character is also going through the anxiety of this job that went from once a very secure, like, okay, all I have to say is this is too far, to now people are pointing the fingers at the censorship board and saying, you are the reason why this person is doing this because you aren't cutting down on this. You are not cutting back on this. And you can feel that too as the killer, the main kind of like serial killer that you keep hearing that keeps bringing up all the controversy throughout this film. And I can't imagine doing that. Like your job going from a standard, oh, they said the F word 4 times, okay, they're going to get an R rating, to I let this movie go too far and now somebody ate somebody's face.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think it points to Enid's character arc as well, because you kind of understand, because I think she even says it a few times during the film about, because there's arguments going on between her and other members of the censorship board of, she doesn't think it's far enough, they think it's actually too much. So there's this give and take of, and it's almost socio-political in nature, right? To your point where, and it's very indicative of that time period of the 80s, the 90s, where if it wasn't movies, it was music. I mean, fucking Twisted Sister got taken to court, I think, for I don't know if it was a murder, or I'll have to look back on that. I'm just going off of memory here, but very indicative of the conservative politics, socio politics of the 1980s that kind of gets dropped in here, and that you kind of get dropped in on. But I also think part of her anxiety is, it's not that it's just a job for her, but I think it's also because of what happened with her sister in her past, that she talks about it's the protection of other people. So clearly you can kind of gather that, okay, because she doesn't know what happened to her sister, she feels like she let her down. Therefore, this is sort of her role to be able to make up for those wrongs, to right those wrongs. So additional anxiety just at a personal level, spiritual level with her, not just the job itself. So it really, that's when things start to open up, right? So I think that's what's very cool about this, that there's a real piece of history being involved, but then they're able to develop this whole character arc throughout that.
So that's really what I want to touch on, because I know Caleb, you specifically, I'm a huge fan of movies that go way too far. So
Same.
Always a fan of Cannibal Holocaust, always a fan of Cannibal Ferox, anything from that era. I actually just watched a Joe D'Amato film that's on the banned list called Absurd. It was a follow-up to another movie that was on the banned list. Yeah, called like Anthropophagus.
Yeah.
So I've really dived into video nasties lately, and mind you, for anybody listening, anytime I watch Cannibal Holocaust, which is like once a decade, I always watch the PETA cut because I fucking hate the animal.
Yeah. That's always a hard watch.
It is.
That, like, luckily Grindhouse Releasing cut all that shit out for their release and kind of gave you an option.
Okay.
That's cool.
But their release of Cannibal Ferox, they did not. I guess because most of the animal deaths are done by other animals, so they're natural. Like Caleb, when the what is it? The snake or something that kills? What is it that eats the?
It's an alligator, isn't that? Isn't there an alligator that kills something in there?
It's something. It's like the pet that they find and they tie him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty gnarly.
So movies like that, I avoid that shit. But the video nasties are so interesting because if you watch them, I don't think they're anything compared to what has come out in the last 15 years, thanks to
Yeah.
like James Wan and Eli Roth and independent horror. So you guys, I think the interesting thing about this movie is the video nasties, and I think that's something that doesn't get touched upon a lot. So what I want to find out from you guys is there stuff in movies nowadays that would warrant us or as a society to place the blame on film violence, or are we past that?
I think we're beyond that. Be quite honest with you. I think in the realm of the internet age of the last 20 years, I mean, me personally, and I think a lot of people can probably speak for this.
Mm-hmm.
The internet is such a vast playground that you can kind of go down a lot of different paths. Some very dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a lot of shit that most people wouldn't see. I remember even during the Iraq War, and this was like 05, 06, 07, where there was those beheadings happening of U.S. soldiers. And I mean, I remember people in my grade talking about watching the uncensored videos of people being
Yeah.
beheaded.
Yeah.
So, I think now we're in such, the vast amount of information that you can collect in a millisecond. I don't necessarily think that. I think that's probably actually the bigger concern, more so than a movie or media can be now. It's because it's so easily attained to where something like a video nasty, it's like you had to basically go to a fucking VHS store and hope that VHS store was slinging that shit, underneath the counter, so to speak. And I like how they did it in the movie too with the brown paper bags. It reminded me of like a liquor store, like you know what I mean. Like it was
100%.
like you don't want to show.
That's
those
probably
things,
how that
so.
shit was, though. Straight up.
You're walking down the road with your Cannibal Holocaust copy, like a 40.
Yeah. You have that and your 40.
Yeah,
and
40
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's beyond that point now.
I
though.
back you on that. I mean, I'm gonna sit here and say the same thing because you can go on Reddit and there's so many Reddit forums where you can watch like anything you could possibly think of. I mean,
Caleb had like 6 things he was gonna rattle off.
Yeah, I did.
Like, what have I watched recently?
I got into a really bad Reddit hole, and honestly, it fucked with my head really bad. I don't recommend it. Even for people that can handle stuff. I don't know. I feel like there's one. All right, there's one. The stuff that I was watching, like it's like you can't turn away, but you don't want to be fucking watching any of this shit. I mean, I just remember like coming across some like gnarly like work accidents, and like just like a dude gets sucked into a steel lathe, and like his entire body gets degloved onto his coworker, and like it's the most gnarliest thing I've ever seen to this day. Easily. I don't think I've ever seen anything that tops that because there's what's that?
I'm gonna need you to link me.
Yeah, well, dude, I'm telling you, man, it fucked me up because like there's so many layers to it. Like there's the whole fact that this guy gets
no pun intended.
Yeah, for real.
He's like,
this guy gets sucked in and he gets like stuck there for a minute, and then like you like see like true panic in his face, and then he gets completely sucked in, and then he gets fucking like he literally starts going around this thing, and like mist of blood is just going all over his coworker, and then like parts of his body just start flying everywhere. And then like you're like, okay, that was fucking insane. But then you start mentally processing that his coworker 5 seconds before this was probably just talking to him, and now he's covered in his body parts.
Yeah.
So like I was like I was fucked up for weeks after that, honestly. Like and thinking back to it now, I'm just like but then of course I just went down further into that rabbit hole and watched more things. So to bring it back and to link it in with what you were asking, I think that there isn't anything that could come out in cinema today that could be worse than what we have access to on a regular basis with just searching things, because ultimately at the end of the day, movies are make-believe, and Reddit and other websites that have fucked up shit on them are real. And you know, obviously I'm not the type of person that is going to have enjoyment out of watching the real shit. I'm sure there's other people out there that do, but I'd rather sit down and watch a movie and, you know, have a laugh and a popcorn and, you know, watch some gore porn and stuff like that, you know. And, you know, even like these modern films have more like storyline driven plots, where like they're mainly focused on like psychological horror. So like the plot actually matters, where like back in the 80s, it was like, how many tits can we put in this film and how many of them can we chop up? So like, you know, that was like the goal back then that got people, you know, buying the shit at the video store or at the theater. Now it's like, I feel like the only thing that's going to really draw people in is like a mind fuck. You know, like for instance, you have the fucking it just came out like last year. Fuck, there's two. Malignant. You know, I thought that was pretty good. It was an interesting concept. I mean, like something like that, it's like a total mind fuck. It wasn't really scary, but it was just like, it was weird, creepy, you know. And then today, as we're recording this, April 1st, April Fool's Day, guys. But yeah, happy birthday to Insidious. So very cool.
We would be renowned if we didn't shout out Rob Bottin. Today is his birthday. He's the special effects supervisor of a ton of movies, including RoboCop and The Thing.
Oh, fuck yeah.
There you go.
Fuck
nice.
yeah.
Hell
there
yeah.
we go.
Also, talk about just how time flies. 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago.
That's
insane.
hard.
Yeah.
To believe. Hard to believe. And
it's a hard pill to swallow.
I don't know if I saw that in theaters or when it came out. I've seen that movie so many fucking times too.
Same. And I'll probably revisit it soon. It is a good one. Somebody actually commented on my status and said that it was a great film, but it was also the decline of modern horror.
Wow.
So, but I think Tyler and I have talked about this on the show before, where you have the paranormal that started to kind of take over, and I think, fuck, here's three. God damn it. All right. You know, you had like the paranormal wave that like took over, that was just like everything was like paranormal or like exorcisms, and like all of that kind of just like stormed off with all of these like spider webbings of you know where modern horror was going, at least mainstream modern horror. You know, meanwhile there's like a ton of great films that are coming out that aren't getting recognized as, you know, as highly as a Exorcism of Emily Rose or you know, a fucking Paranormal Activity or whatever. You know, and this isn't a knock towards like your bigger mainstream directors like Eli Roth or, you know, James Wan or anything. I think James Wan always has all of his films are very psychological, and his soundtracks and his scores always represent that very well. Even his representation of using Tiny Tim and Insidious was just like a very interesting move, but it played off so well. And now, of course, that song is recognizably noticed for being in that movie. So, you know, and it kind of changes the vibe. You know, that was like, you know, this goofy fucking dude, Tiny Tim, playing on Ed Sullivan and having this crazy high-pitched voice. And like, you know, everyone was like, fucking Tiny Tim, what a goofball. To where it's viewed now, where it's like that fucking creepy ass song that plays in that Insidious movie.
Although if you do see Tiny Tim, that's a creepy look. Is a creepy looking dude.
Fair.
He's a creepy looking dude.
Yeah, but you know what happens though is I think you have these directors who are like masters. So you have James Wan doing Insidious. Well, he had Dead Silence. Which,
that was a good one.
Revisit, fucking awesome. So then he goes and he does Insidious. And then the next big hit for him is The Conjuring, which I think is really when the paranormal, the slow burn scare movies really kicked off. But what happens is you have him who, I will say, hands down, The Conjuring 1 and 2 are two of the scariest movies ever made. Oh, yeah. They are wicked. And even now, if I put those on and I sit alone and it's dark, it's very few times that I actually feel like fear and anxiety. I will sweat. I get really anxious. But then you have the parade of people who just want to hop on that bandwagon, and they can never do it to that level. And you're going to see that time and time again. Like now, I don't know. I don't think you guys have seen it yet, but X, the new Ty West movie that hit
Yeah.
theaters within
Oh
the
yeah,
last,
no.
that's going to kick off. We've seen this kind of shift where people are trying to harken back to the 70s and the 80s, and Ty West X does that perfectly. It feels like a 70s sleazy, just disgusting, you need to shower when you're done movie, and that's going to be the new wave. And nobody's ever going to be able to reach that peak with it. And especially since like this year, I know we have Texas Chainsaw getting 4K re-release. You have a ton of 70s movies. Grindhouse releasing. I just picked up their copy of Death Game, which
Yeah.
is the original film to Eli Roth's Knock Knock.
Yeah.
He remade it. So there's a big 70s trend coming back, and I'm really curious as to how long this is going to last, because the paranormal shit I've never been a fan of.
Yeah.
So all the
Like,
haunted
there
house
was-
stuff, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was over that a whole ass minute ago, and you know, I think like there were some spin-offs of The Conjuring that were pretty good. I wasn't really a fan of Annabelle. The Nun really didn't do it for me. But what the fuck was the other one? He was like the fucking the thing that came out of the cards. It was like the fucking. It's like something man. I think maybe it was like the
yeah, it's not. Oh my god, it's not Slender Man, but it's like
Yeah,
that
it's like the-
fucking weird like
yeah, it's like the top hat and shit.
cartoonish.
Yeah. That
It looks
that
like the. Have you ever seen the music video for All That I've Got by The Used?
yeah.
It looks like that. It looks like he could be a part of that music video. It's not scary at all.
Are you
Let me
talking about the
see.
guy from the one from Conjuring 2, the tall man or the thin man?
Oh man,
The
Thin-
Crooked
yeah.
Man.
Oh,
Crooked
Crooked
Man.
yeah.
Crooked
Crooked
Man.
Man.
Yeah,
Which isn't
Yep.
out yet. Is it out? The Crooked
it was
Man?
supposed to come out, and I don't know if COVID backlogged that.
Wait,
I think
hold
the
on.
only one I have to say, okay, so I am a fan of Annabelle 1 and 2.
I like
because
one.
Oh, no, I
Both
can't.
of them are,
I
yeah,
can do
both
one.
of them are solid. Annabelle 3 I didn't love, but there's a moment in that movie that I think killed it, and it was the ferryman. In that movie, there's a scene where she meets the ferryman who has the gold coins
That's
on
right.
his eyes, and he became like the biggest character in that movie, and they were
I
gonna
don't think
do
I
a
saw that one.
Yeah, it's like the haunted house one where the babysitter goes and stays at the house, and she ends up going into their room, and she pretty much lets them all out. It's kind of like a Goosebumps style.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a character called the Ferryman, and he is supposedly the captain of the ferry that you have to pay. I believe when you go into the afterlife, and he has gold coins for eyes, and he was absolutely incredible in that movie. And yeah, that's the only one that I'm like, yeah, I'll get a movie of that. Thank you.
Yeah. I hear that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't do doll movies. I think that's what it is for me. But
No.
So Caleb, what is your? Because I know mine, or like you, Tyler, as well. What is your appeal to when you look back at like video nasties and you think about like Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Pharaoh, Driller Killer, any of those extreme movies of the '80s? What is your guys' appeal to them? Because we all have one.
yeah, no, for sure.
So-
I think
So
I
what
think
is
for me the big thing is that back in the day, we talked about this on the last episode briefly, was practical effects being used in in these films. Back then there wasn't any CGI, there wasn't any fucking post-production bullshit. It was you did it on the spot, that was that, and that was your take. And a lot of these like special effects artists were, fucking rocking bare minimum equipment and still putting out, amazing effects, amazing practical effects. And all of your video nasties, like, all have that type of like absolute insanity to them, especially something like a Driller Killer. I mean, I Spit on Your Grave, that's another one that, like, if you can stomach what happens throughout the movie, it makes the kills at the end that much more worth it. But like, they're fucking brutal, and like, and not even just like, just that era of time in film for horror was the golden era, because that was when I think creativity was at an all-time high, and even though everyone was ripping off each other, it was still completely okay because there was always different elements that made it, original. The killer or like the practical effects. It's like there's 100 different movies that are just like The Prowler here behind me, and it's like, but The Prowler just does something, and it's because fucking Tom Savini. I mean, let's fucking be honest. You know what I mean? And it's just like that's just what it comes down to at the end of the day. So I think my appeal to the hardcore like gore porn of like 70s and 80s was just the fact that like it was amazing that they could pull off this on mostly low budget and at the same time make it look so fucking realistic. Honestly, a lot of them are more realistic than today's practical effects, or not practical effects, but your CGI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'll say like the new Texas Chainsaw definitely did a good job with its kills and looking authentic, and they were gnarly. They were super violent. Another one that does it really good is Jay Budish. I think that's how you say his name, Jay Budishell, or
Jay Baruchel.
Jay Baruchel, yeah. Random Acts of Violence was absolutely insane. It was such a visceral movie, and like
that car scene, the first kill,
so fucking gnarly.
Jeez, I remember I was watching the movie and I'm like, holy shit.
You feel uncomfortable. You're like, oh shit.
Stabbing, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah.
But like, that's like a good example of like today's stuff that is done well, but you'll see more of like the cheaper route and the CGI going that way because, whether it's more costly or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, that's why those films interest me. Ty, what's
I was
you
gonna say? You can certainly echo that sentiment. I mean, if you look at one of the reviews we've done for like Land of the Dead, for instance, there's a particular scene where the zombie's head it looks like it's decapitated and it snaps back.
Yeah,
and it's arguably from a CGI perspective, it's kind of cheesy, even in comparison to the video nasties of the 70s and 80s. Now, granted, I will say that I am not as deeply explored into the video nasty world. There's a few that I can name offhand. Obviously, Cannibal Holocaust, Ferox, I Spit on Your Grave. I think it's kind of the same thing of what we're talking about with the internet age. It's the taboo aspect of what they're doing.
Taboo.
It's the taboo aspect of what they're doing. I mean, if you look at something like I Spit on Your Grave with the rape scenes, the revenge kills, I mean, it's so vulgar and in your face, and that's a great film that ties back to what reality can be. Like those things actually happen, but it's the things that we always put in the back of our subconscious that we know is there, that we recognize as a thing, but we don't want to address, and it addresses it in full display, just like most of the video nasties did. And I think a credit to the effects team on a lot of those films to be able to bring that to light. But I think it's easily, without a doubt, the taboo aspect of life that it brings up, the thing that people don't want to deal with, and why it probably was banned, for those particular reasons, right? So, I mean, it does it in such a way that it's sort of fearless, and I think, do we get that now? Definitely not. I mean, those films would never even remotely. I mean, they didn't see the light of day then. They definitely wouldn't even see the light of day now. I think I think we're in a weird version of what the 80s were to some degree of that conservative way of blocking things and trying to judge both language and visuals of what is deemed right or not right in society. Yeah. I think we're kind of dealing with a renaissance of that to some degree. But I certainly think just from the pure taboo aspect of what video nasties are, I think that's what's so great about it, is that, hey, there's things that depict the beauty of life, but there's also things that depict the pure savagery of human nature. And Cannibal Holocaust is a great example of what that is, right? So, I think that's probably the big thing, the big takeaway for me, at least from the little experience that I have of video nasties. But I think in horror in general, I think you can speak to it in a lot of different ways, not just video nasties, but most of the horror genre, for sure.
I'm just a supporter of letting filmmakers have their vision, even when it comes down to give me any director's cut alternative to any movie, and I'm going to watch it 10 times out of 10 over the theatrical release. I want to see true vision. And I definitely think that we've gotten to a point where films are supposed to be accessible for everybody, and I don't think they're supposed to be accessible for everybody. There was a point where, think of video games, only certain people got Mortal Kombat, right? You had to be 18 or 17
Right.
to get Mortal Kombat. It was not accessible to anybody under 17. And yes, there is an R rating on horror movies that say, hey, not acceptable for anybody under 17. But I think that movies are supposed to be challenging, and they're supposed to tell a challenging story, and they're supposed to be very difficult. I mean, I Spit on Your Grave, violence wise, isn't even that nasty. Like it's not even. It's just the context of it when she, lops his stuff off in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And you don't even really see it. You just have this really intelligent way of showing just enough to get it across.
Which is another tasteful thing, because I think just enough was definitely utilized very well back in the 70s and 80s, whereas now it's either the just enough is cheesy, or it's a trope, or it's, I don't know, it's just CGI'd, or it doesn't exist.
And I think the ability to be able to show everything now is to some degree a detriment to movies, where I think back in the 70s and 80s, where you kind of had the restriction to show only so much because probably your effects and what you were able to do couldn't get you there to make it look realistic. I think that plays on the human imagination a lot too. I mean, you're able to conjure up your own personal fears that makes that film even scarier, or makes that scene even scarier.
Both Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave are pre-Tom Savini visual effects.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Even like a film like Deliverance, for instance. I mean, that's another one, and I mean, there's an ability to be tasteful with it, but also, again, play on the human mind, which I think some films today, because of the amount of tools that they have, they can kind of just give it all away. I mean, how many films do you watch nowadays too, where you go to see the film and you're like, fuck, the best parts of this film were all in the trailer too. How many times do you see that? All the
4-minute trailer.
Yeah, you're like Jesus Christ, they gave away the whole movie. I didn't even need to see. I didn't even need to see this film. So there is that problem, I think, in film now as well. I think also the sequel, I think, has murdered a lot of creativity in film too, to some degree. So now, not to say every sequel is bad. It's kind of like the same argument that the book is better than the movie argument, right? Which I think that's always a case by case basis. But I think the remakes and the sequels have, in my opinion anyway, murdered a lot of film. But
I just watched so I watched Craven's Last House on the Left, and then I watched the remake immediately after in the same night, and I noticed right then and there what the problem is. And the remake, first of all, is like 40 minutes longer than the original Last House on the Left, which is ridiculous. But then they tried to expand upon it by like trying to get you to feel more bad for the victim. So there's all this useless character, and there's all this fluff that just takes away from the impact of the movie. And you watch the original Last House on the Left, and it just goes 0 to 100, and it never holds back because it doesn't have time to. The remake just took way too much free time, and it just doesn't work.
And I'll tell you, to loop back into Censor, I think that's what this film does well, because this film you could easily fall into the trap of making this hour and 24-minute film 2 hours and 24 minutes, right? Yeah. Because there is a lot of detective and searching of this film by Enid that you could unpack layer upon layer upon layer, where at a certain point it would have probably bored you to death. But I felt like they kept pace in mind with this film. And
the pacing with this film was really, really well done.
Yeah, and it was very lean, and they took out a lot of the fat, which I really appreciate, because that's hard to do with a film like this, especially based on the storylines.
A couple things I want to hit on with Censor that are really interesting. First of all, this film was shot on 35 millimeter, which is
so I
don't know what that
noticed.
It's on film.
What the fuck does that even mean?
What the fucking 35 millimeters?
Shot on film. It was shot.
That's pretty cool, man.
Maybe I think it was a digital. It was probably shot on 35, and then I'll find out.
Yeah, there's probably a transfer done, but either way, it was beautiful. I mean, the lighting, a lot of the cinematography, and the color palette was very interesting, especially towards like the latter half of the movie, and it gave me like Mandy vibes with how like vivid the color palette was. I think that's another thing too in modern horror that we're really I don't know, that I think that we're kind of like blessed with, is the ability to have such a vivid color palette. I mean, older films, you had heavy color palettes in sci-fi. So like your Dune and Mad Max and you know, like I don't know, like Dark Crystal, like even like getting into like
very saturated.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like, you know, now we can see like something like Mandy or It Follows or Color of Space, or Color Out of Space rather, and then like this Censor, like the opening scene has a very vivid like blue, purple, pink, and I don't know, it was very very eye gouging in a positive way right from the gate. You're just like, oh fuck, like this is intense already. Almost has like that like Evil Dead remake vibe at the beginning. Just with like how it's like very very grainy. But yeah, very cool to find out that it was shot on 35. That's rad. So Tyler, everything that we've watched at Mahoning has been on 35, unless we were there for VHS Fest, which they play everything on VHS tape.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
what's interesting. So for people who haven't seen it, this film changes aspect ratio as the movie goes on. It very slowly condenses, but also you see a lot of different formats. So just looking at the cinematographic processing list for this movie, so you have X Ocean SST, which is your standard 4K source format, right? So that's your standard digital 4K. And then you have VHS, which I imagine was for some of the films that she was watching. So those were actually shot on VHS and then transferred to a digital intermediate. Then you have Super 8 for some scenes,
which is cool.
So you're going real far back.
Yeah.
Super 8. Then you have Super 35, which was used as the source format. So that was your 35 millimeter shot on Super 35. And then you have, Caleb, you might know, H.264, which is actually MPEG-4 video compression.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
So it was shot on MK4, and then it was transferred to a 2K digital intermediate, which is why this movie looks so fucking awesome from beginning to end.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful film. It really is. And like I could not recommend, if you wanted something that grabs you at the gate, has a beautiful color palette, like I said, I'll just keep talking about that because it's the fucking truth. But oh hey, what's up, buddy? Horrorflix and Guitar Picks is in here. He's at work.
Nice.
Censor ruled. Can't wait to hear the full episode. Fuck yeah, dude. I'm all about it. But
now I will say one thing. Speaking of the color palette, that I wanted to point to, more so to get your guys' opinion on why you felt that they put specific colors in specific parts of the backdrop. But if you look at the dream sequences, right, there's certain instances where they do tend, like the camera will kind of swing and focus on the ground, and then it looks like the weeds and the flowers are highlighted red, and it almost looks like underneath the soil is like there's like this bluish hue, if you will. I'm curious why you guys think they focused on the ground to be highlighted in that particular color as much as anything in those dream sequences. I found that interesting because I was like, is this so? Because that's where you kind of get where I got the play on the demonic side of things. Because if you think a demon, and usually how it's kind of brought to light in most cases, biblically speaking, in film, it's always from the ground up. So that's where my brain went to when I saw those particular scenes. But I'm curious why they highlighted. Maybe it was just an aesthetically pleasing thing from a backdrop perspective when you were focusing on the situations that Enid was going through. But I found it interesting that that's where kind of the color pop was coming in a lot of these scenes.
So for me, I think one of the two things that I would say to kind of follow on, like to kind of go into that is, I think when films kind of focus on like the nature aspect of things, I feel like it's a good deterrent and like a way to build tension. Because if you can kind of like, I always look at that where like they include like the surroundings and the nature and shots like that. I feel like that kind of gives you almost like a character perspective of what they could potentially be seeing. And then you're talking about it's a dream sequence, so dreams are kind of.
I guess not. I guess not a
well,
dream
no,
sequences is probably right.
no,
but
no, no. It's like almost like a hallucination type thing,
Yeah.
and like no, dream sequence is definitely the best way to put it because your dreams are always skewed. So like, there's always like something off about any dream you have, and it could be the fact that like you see yourself third person, or colors might be weird, or something weird might be happening. But like, there's always like a visual depiction of dream sequences always having this like kind of like dive trail and like oversaturated. And I think like when they were panning around from the ground and you're seeing like these like other vivid colors, I think that was just kind of a way to build tension, to kind of give you character perspective, to see like how nauseating it could potentially be being in her shoes, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also think too it's a balance because you have the dream sequences where she pulls up in front of her family home, and it's bright, it's vibrant. The grass is as green as can be. The sun is out. Even in the end of the movie, you have a rainbow that gets
Yeah.
added. And I think it might be. I mean, just my opinion. A cross of the two. So it's when reality and dream starts blending, and that's kind of how the color of the dream starts blending into the dark reality. It's kind of like if you were to combine the two. I also think it could just be a strictly visual choice, which is how do you not just have a simply drab image? How do you combine them, put them together? Because the film is very red, blue, and green.
Yep.
I think that could be it as well. But it's really interesting because it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And it's really cool because you have at that hour mark where your aspect ratio begins to change. And at that hour mark is when I started really wondering, like, is this real? Is this like what's? And then you have her showing up to the film set, being confused by the one. I think she's like a production assistant,
Yeah, and she gets her in
or
the dress.
being yeah. So
Oh
then
yeah.
you have that crazy moment where she's standing in the light in the forest, and then Frederick North is standing over and calling over to her,
Yeah.
and then you really start
Yeah.
getting like, and it's not until she hits the characters playing the Beastman with the axe that you're like, what?
Right.
Like it feels like it started unfolding, like it's like a
Yeah.
flower, all these layers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this? Like, is this real?
So especially toward the end there, when it literally it just opens up the portal of reality of what's actually happening, and then it's all in her head. One of the things I thought about was if you think of like mental disabilities, schizophrenia, right?
Mhm.
That's the first one that came to mind, where it's like she's perceiving things to be real when they're not real. Just Googled it. Visual changes are common in schizophrenia. Several authors have described perceptual distortions of colors, the intensity of light, shapes, especially in early stages of illness. So
Interesting.
they don't actually point out what if she has a mental illness. Quite frankly, they don't necessarily. And I think what I like about the film too is they don't directly say like she killed her sister and this is what this has all been about this entire time, and she's thinking that this actress is like, they don't specifically say what's going on with her. It's kind of left up for you to interpret, which is pretty
Yeah.
obvious by the end. But that is something that happens in schizophrenic, not all schizophrenics, but according to some studies that's particularly the case. So
Yeah, and I think
I
the
don't
other
know.
thing too is that like she's definitely like, she had a weak mind going into her career, and then her career shaped her brain even worse, in the sense that like she couldn't handle like the content that she was taking in from all these different films. And
Sure.
it fucked her up already further than she already was. But another thing too, because this movie is recent, we've kind of kept to this whole Anytime we review like a modern film, aside from giving it away, I would rather encourage our listeners to and viewers, for you in the Twitch universe, I would encourage y'all to go and watch this. And Tyler, you said that this was a streamable on Hulu.
Hulu.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
you can view
I
it
bought
on
it for
Hulu.
nothing. God damn it. No, just kidding. I would purchase it. I'm happy to have a
Told
copy
you
of it.
guys
Yeah.
it was on Hulu, and then you bought it.
Say, well, he doesn't listen.
You did.
Apparently,
Yeah.
that's on him.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did. But I kind of don't want to give the ending and like the whole wrap of it all away, just because I feel like you didn't. You definitely didn't.
Okay.
I think we left it open, and I think the other thing too is that we've kind of like alluded and given enough information to have someone be interested in the film to want to go see it. We'll post a link to the trailer in the description, and then if you're already listening to this, maybe you've already seen it. I'll put a thing on Spotify. Like I said last episode, unfortunately, Apple Podcasts doesn't have this type of interactive UI, but Spotify does. And for you Spotify users, I will put a comment section where you guys can talk about what you thought of the film. So just look for that little section. I'll make sure I put that in the episode. But listen, guys, I want to hear your guys' wrap on it. I want to see what you guys, your overall and your ratings. So let me think about this. Let me think out. Actually, I did last week. I did this the shark bites. So
You did. Ooh.
All right, out of 5 aspect ratio changes.
There we go. Out of 5 aspect ratio changes. I like this. Okay.
Wow. All right.
I give this a 16:9. All right.
16 by 9.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means, to be honest with you guys. You're really fucking throwing me for a loop this
I'm
episode.
gonna give this a 135.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna rate it like I normally do, because I don't understand. It's all when you guys start talking. It's like I imagine it's what like somebody like someone English speaking like us listens to when somebody like starts speaking Mandarin. I'm just like, what is
So, Tyler, if you have a square, right? How do you measure a square?
oh fucking dude, don't even start. I hate. Is this like geometry? Because I failed geometry.
Yeah, it's all aspect.
There you go.
All aspect ratio is just height and width. That's all.
Oh,
That,
okay.
Caleb, what you just did is what my interpretation of what your display looked like earlier.
Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna fucking show you. I'm gonna send the video. You guys will fucking see it. It was terrible. It fucking my screen had a goddamn aneurysm. But Ty, let me hear. Out of 5 aspect ratios, what do you give this?
Yeah, I would give this a 4.3 out of 5 aspect ratios.
God damn, you gave this a higher rating than you gave Zombie.
I did, dude. I really like this film, actually, to be quite honest with you.
See, okay. No. It's okay. I'm totally okay with this. Now, here's the thing. I think this is going to be Tyler's fancy. I think this is going to be Tyler's niche. Is going to be like the modern. I'm not saying you don't like the older boys, but I think
you just say it.
Yeah.
Tyler hates old movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fucking hates the classics.
I was gonna say, so they got mainstream Mike on Bad Taste. What the fuck should mine name be? Totally Today, Tyler. There we go.
Oh,
dude. Well,
God damn it.
Triple T.
That's it,
Oh
baby.
my
Triple T.
God.
Yeah, that's
Fuck.
it. That's it.
All right.
But I'll be honest. What is my niche is I think I've said this from probably the first few episodes we've ever done, which was I'm very invested in storylines.
You are.
And I'm very invested in slow burners. Hence why I wanted us to review the movie 7, because it feels very much the same in that way. There's this
goddamn 27
detective. Goddamn 27. Yeah. By the way, if you guys have never, listeners out there, if you've never seen that clip, I can't remember. Just type in on YouTube. Goddamn 47. 47.
Yeah.
And it's this woman who's trying to guess how many stars there are on the flag, and she like pulls in the 13 colonies and then does the math of 13 minus 50 and then goes, goddamn 47, which is completely wrong. But you got to watch it. It's the best. Anyway, no, I love these type of storylines where you're kind of bobbing in and out of reality, but it's also you're having to work to try and figure out where this film is headed. And I love any type of interactive storyline like that. And this movie does that very well.
Agreed.
The color palette and the juxtaposition between the mundane reality of her world, which could be tied to that mental illness that's not necessarily said but implied, to her kind of falling in and out of reality and how they shape that based on color palette. Um, I love this movie. It's beautifully done. I think again the storyline and the film itself, it keeps itself very lean. An hour and 24 minutes. I think I said that like 3 times this episode, but I think it's worth mentioning.
Goddamn 47.
Goddamn 47. I think I would recommend this to a lot of people. I think horror lovers, individuals who don't necessarily like horror, because I don't think this film too. It doesn't. And I think it's what's the other cool juxtaposition is it focuses on video nasties and just the amount of vulgar display of gore. This film really doesn't do that. The only time it really does it, there's one particular kill that it does it well, and then obviously the end, the axe scene. But outside of those 2 instances, really everything else is through the video nasty. So very clean cut that way. So I think this film knows exactly what it's doing in so many different ways. It's a very smart film. So 4.3 out of 5 for me.
Love it. Chris, on to you, my friend.
Right. So I'm definitely going very strong. If I had to get particular, I'm probably going to say like a 4.7 out of 5. Couple big notes for me. First of all, more horror movies that are based around realistic topics. So fiction meeting with nonfiction. Let's please bring forgotten movies back into the limelight with films like this. I think that this film really brought back. Nobody talked about the video nasties really up until Censor started bringing some light back into it. I also want to say shout out Vinegar Syndrome for including the documentary, for riding on that. I think that's a really important educational thing for anybody into horror, just into the history of film. I want more female directed films, honestly. Like, I think that this film is extremely intelligent. It tells a great story without needing to feed into the cliches of the genre. It stands out on its own. Also, Vinegar Syndrome, I want them to get more into releasing these independent titles. I know that they released Tragedy Girls in their last release. I think that them staying a little bit modern and giving a light to these films is extremely important. And I think this movie I think it's demented. I think it's very intelligent. It doesn't waste a single minute. I think that this is the proper throwback to exactly the stories it's trying to copy. And I absolutely love it for that. I'm all in for it. I'm all in for anything that her name is Prano Bailey Bond.
I wasn't trying to remember that offhand when I was mentioning it earlier. So
Prano Bailey Bond.
Yeah, anything that she does from here on, she is on my list. Incredible.
Same.
Also, I really just appreciate, you guys know I'm a photographer. I'm a visual geek. So for a film to explore into as many visual regions as this does, using Super 35, using VHS, using 4K, really being an intelligent film technically, I'm 100% into that. And I'm all about this movie. I mean, I think that this needs a second resurgence because it hit really big on the festival thing, which is why I heard of it. But I think that this needs to hit more mainstream audiences, and thank God Hulu has it available.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, fuck yeah. I'm gonna just piggyback off of both of those statements and say that this fucking film ruled. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will watch it again. It definitely has that lasting effect where you can watch it again and not get bored. I'm gonna meet you guys both in the middle. I'm gonna go with a 4.5, and I'm gonna say that this is definitely something that you should definitely check out. It's on Hulu. It's on VOD for Hulu or Vudu and shit like that. So make sure you get a copy of it if you're into physical media. If you're not, like I said, it's on Hulu, it's on Vudu. Next week, we're going to decide on what we're going to watch, and we'll do that off air.
No empty promises.
Did you guys, did any of you guys buy any new movies this past week?
So I picked up Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I picked up a Serbian film, and I picked up a 40th anniversary steelbook of Friday the 13th Part 2, which was really rad. If you want to check those out, they're going to be over on our Instagram at Tapehead Massacre. Listen, one thing I haven't done in a couple episodes, just because it's kind of slipped my mind, has been cross-promoting. If you don't already follow us from social media, we are on the socials. We have a Facebook, the Tapehead Massacre podcast. We are on Instagram at Tapehead Massacre. We have a TikTok. If you guys are into TikToks, if you're into the TikToks, at Tapehead Massacre podcast for that. I try to pull clips that are deemed funny or even serious, to a degree, from the show and post them on over there. We will have a merch store soon. We are currently in the process of getting merch made, so there's going to be fun stuff for that. Again, I'm going to plug the Friday the 13th con. We will be guests at this year's Friday the 13th con, the inaugural Friday the 13th con put on by Horror 365 and South Jersey Jason. It'll be May the 13th and 14th. It is the only Friday the 13th of the year. So make sure you guys come out. It's going to be at the Blairstown Diner. This episode, I'm going to post the ticket link in the description of the episode, so that way you guys can go grab your tickets. Weekend passes are hella cheap. And if you do the weekend pass, I believe that gets you a dinner ticket each night with the alumni. So you get to have dinner with the cast and crew from the different films over the years. There's a ton of guests. If you guys want a full guest list, again, it'll be at the description in the bio. And we're fucking absolutely stoked for that Friday the 13th con at the Blairstown Diner in Blairstown, New Jersey, May 13th and 14th. It's going to be fucking sick. And we got about another 2 weeks until Mahoning opens up, and our asses will be up there fucking watching some good old films. And we'll do what Tapes from the Crypt did, which was they broadcasted live up there. I've been wanting to do that, but now I actually have a portable rig that can do that. One thing I also do want to do before we hop off of here is I want to shout out a couple people that followed and subscribed during this stream. Mrs. Juice, Mrs. Julie.
Mrs. Julie's got the juice.
Yeah, Mrs. Julie, Trauma Takani, Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks, the homie, Trust Slug, and Florette Fairy. Thank you for the follows and subscriptions. Much appreciated for you being here on Twitch. My channel is Mended Wounds, so but it will be converted over into the Tapehead Massacre podcast page because I'm going to start streaming video games soon again, but I'm going to stick to the horror theme. So I'll be streaming Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th and fun things like that. Evil Dead's going to be coming out. So there's going to be... And Resident Evil Biohazard and things of that. I'll be streaming all of these. Go ahead, Ty.
Here's a good question. What's your favorite horror video game?
Favorite horror video game?
Yeah, if you had to go to.
Dead Space. Or Fear. Both of those games were really, really fucking serious. Silent Hill for PS1 scared the fuck out of me. That's a difficult one. That one always sent me when I was a kid.
I'll piggyback off Fear, but also Silent Hill 4, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's a good one. But I've been really enjoying the whole Dead by Daylight universe of things. It's cool that they add the killers in and they keep it nice and current. But
there's also a Texas Chainsaw Massacre multiplayer game on its way as well.
That's news to me, and I will have to check that out. That's fucking cool.
Yes, there is. There's an Evil Dead one coming out, and then I believe it's the same people who did the Friday 13th game. because I don't know if the Friday 13th game has had any updates in a long time due to the rights issues.
No, it hasn't.
So I think that they're making that almost the same game except with Leatherface and the family.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd
That's
be really
sick.
fucking cool.
Up till a couple years ago, guys, I still had my PS2 with all my original games, including Evil Dead, on PS2.
Oh yeah, Fistful of Boomstick.
Fistful of Boomstick, and then I sold it.
Just a reminder, Tyler is selling an original Xbox Series 1. If anybody's
name your price, baby. Name your price.
Hit us up in the DMs. We'll ship it out to you with like some tapes or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But
for sure.
Well, listen, guys, we're going to catch you next week for another exciting episode. Next week, we do not know what we're watching yet, so we're going to discuss that, and we're going to talk about it off air, and then we will catch you guys for that episode. The following episode, we will have Mia Wallace on from Dark Shade Films, and we'll be watching Tourist Trap with her. So we are stoked for that. It should be the following episode, if my schedule lines up correctly. We'll be having the directors from AP Films on to talk over their film / Lorette Party. Very stoked about that. And listen, guys, y'all have a great fucking week.
Bye, everybody.
Love y'all.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.